It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are here. We'll talk about the big congressional hearing going on as we speak in Washington, D.C., and why Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella wasn't on the dais. We also have news about Windows 10, its 5th anniversary, and Paul Thurrott contributes a cocktail of the week, and it sounds like it's a good one. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly. Windows Weekly comes to you from Twit's LastPass Studios. Stay in control when it comes to your company's access points and authentication. LastPass makes security simple for your remote workforce. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 683. Recorded Wednesday, July 29th, 2020. The Purposeful Luddite. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by Barracuda. Did you know that 91% of all cyber attacks start with an email? To uncover the threats hiding in your Office 365 account, get a secure and free email threat scan at barracuda.com/windows. Hello, boys and girls. Good to see you once again. It's time for I thought I'd try
around the fire, kids.
A different way of starting the show.
Mr. Rogers.
Hello.
Okay.
I do put on, I do put on slippers now when I come in the studio. So, it kind of is. It's a beautiful day in the Windows world. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Windows Weekly. This is the show where we talk about the latest news from Microsoft with Mr. Paul Thurrott of Thurrott.com, Mary Jo Foley of ZDNet. And of course, we were a little delayed today because I couldn't tear myself away from the testimony of the big four.
Jeez.
Zuck.
See, I can't watch more than a few minutes of that, and it's just aggravating.
I watch. Okay,
I just want to read the recaps.
Yeah, I mean, once the questioning begins, it does get the steam start to come out. But I have to say, I watched Jeff Bezos kicked things off, and then Sundar Pichai of Google, Tim Cook of Apple, and Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. And by the time they were done, certainly Sundar Pichai and Tim Cook, I wanted to jump up, wave the flag, and say, hallelujah, celebrate big tech, because they were, they weren't lying. They were very clear about the benefits tech have brought us. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in, are these guys too big? Are they too dominant? Are they, skewing the conversation? Is Amazon going to eat the world? That we forget what a boon these companies have given us. So, I mean, look, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing without this. We use Microsoft Skype. We use technologies from a variety of companies. Although Jeffrey Fowler, I was watching the Washington Post stream, Jeffrey Fowler, who's their great tech columnist, did make a point that when he first started covering tech, as for the same of all three of us, there were a lot of little companies.
Yeah.
That's changed. We cover the big, it's all about the big companies.
There were small, what I would call like legitimate companies, actual corporations. I think today you could almost call it like an indie scene. Like there are tons of very small companies.
That's true.
It's a different kind of thing. But no, he's right. I mean, he's definitely right. There was basically, the big guys, Microsoft, Sun, IBM, whomever it did, depending on the year. And then, there were lots of smaller companies for sure. Yeah,
It is a little bit more those big four dominate. The other thing that struck me after I stopped running around naked waving the flag because I had just gotten out of the shower was
I see.
Yeah.
Talk about draping yourself on the flag, Leo.
Lisa thought it was a lot, I must say. That
I'm sorry, I'm not going to let that one pass. You mean for us to believe that that's an unusual occurrence in your house? that your wife was actually surprised by this.
Well, so the TV is where her office is.
Yes.
And I was listening on my Echo, but I wanted to see once they started talking. I wanted to see because they're all on Skype or something like it. And I thought it was very
WebEx, I think, right? Yeah.
Cisco or WebEx. And so it's interesting. I wanted to see, I think there was a lot, I would guess, I hate to use this word, but semiotics in the signaling of the set, how they were dressed.
Of course, yes.
Sure.
Right? All of it was purposeful. Yep,
clearly, hours were spent.
Through, right?
Yeah, highly thought through. So I wanted to, I was listening, and listening's good because you can hear the words. but I wanted to see. So I came, and I was in the shower, and I came running out. And I had to drape myself in something, and I thought the American flag was as good as anything. God bless
Why not?
it. Now we're going to have to burn it.
Well, I think we're going to give it a decent burial, yes. So, but the one thing that did leap to mind is, where's Satya Nadella on that list? Why is he not in that group? Shouldn't he be?
Because Microsoft is not big into consumer tech.
None of them were monopolies, though, as they were very quick to point out.
Well, I don't know.
Bezos said, we only have 5% of the market. What are you talking about?
Let's talk about ads.
Yeah, well, in certain areas, maybe, yeah.
I mean, Microsoft obviously dominates to some degree in the enterprise.
They were the big bad giant in years gone by.
And by the way, I would say it's a striking difference. 22 years ago, Bill Gates stood in front of a similar panel. He appeared in person, of course, at that time. And Microsoft was personal computing when that happened. Today, it is these four companies and some others collectively are personal computing, and they definitely wield more power overall because the audience size is bigger. But as far as like a percentage of the market, or however you want to measure that, none of them stand up to Microsoft, to the level of power that Microsoft had within the confines of the market, such as it was in the 90s.
That's fair.
Unless you want to measure online ads, then I think it's a different story.
Well, the three of them together, Amazon, Google, and Facebook, dominate online advertising dramatically, right?
Yeah.
But that's three companies, so none of them has a monopoly either.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, right, but so the issue with the people always cart out the term monopoly, right? And if they don't have monopoly, it's not a problem. It's like it's a little more nuanced than that. I mean, you have to determine market power and your gatekeeper abilities over a gigantic audience. The amount of money that you generate, your ability to exclude competitors and to harm consumers. These companies are all dominant tech superpowers in many ways, each of them, and Microsoft too. And I mean, there needs to be, as there always. I mean, in the 90s we talked about this too. I mean, there's this notion that maybe the law has not kept up with what's happened out in the market.
Yes.
And
it's difficult for the law to keep up.
Yeah.
And the reason this comes up is this committee is in fact the Antitrust Committee of the Judiciary Committee of the Congress. So that's their bailiwick. That's despite the fact that they are asking them about things like bias. This really isn't that's not really the purview of the committee.
Or it just every conversation I have is ridiculous. It's like on whatever day and whatever year, Mr. Zuckerberg, you asked your CTO or CFO or whoever it was about buying Instagram, and he's just like, and like yeah, I guess so. So what?
Yeah.
Like,
well, the point. I think I can't remember, was this Cicciolini or Jerry Nadler, but the point was, did you buy Instagram because they were a competitor and you wanted to basically keep them from competing? I don't know if that's illegal. I guess it is based on his questioning. But everybody knows that's why. It's not even a question. Of course, that's why we bought it.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I don't know. And so many of these things, just like in the Microsoft antitrust trial, they're things that happened in the past, right? And so they're asking him about things that happened in the past. And then it's like, yeah, okay. So if you give them a remedy now and you try to fix it, it's too late.
Yeah, it's kind of too late.
Right?
You allowed it. We should be clear. The government allowed it and said there was no trust issue. And company,
but does that mean that we just give up and don't ever do anything about it? I mean, it's too bad we didn't do something about it 5 years earlier, in Microsoft's case or whatever. But I don't know.
That's a good question. I don't know.
It's a rhetorical question.
If you're a company, you went through the process and the government examined it and the government gave you a clean bill of health, so you went ahead and did it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they're going to come back 5 years later and say, well, we were wrong.
Yeah.
One of the central ironies of the Microsoft antitrust case in the United States is that Netscape was sold to America Online while it was happening.
Yep.
And it was like, see, I mean, these were the guys that were going to take over the market, and Microsoft destroyed them.
Yeah.
Now, Netscape, like a lot of companies, had a lot of self-inflicted damage as well. And when I don't, it's probably in the notes, but. If we look at that Slack thing again, the Microsoft complaint, I mean, you definitely can see some parallels there, but you see parallels on both sides. I mean, Slack as the smaller company, it wasn't necessarily well managed and didn't necessarily do a good job. And confronted by the fact that Microsoft was entering their market, What did they do exactly? Can you point to something they did that was amazing that made their product better? All they did was start complaining.
Yeah.
Took out a full page ad in the New York Times, wasn't it? Where they said, "Welcome to the party, Microsoft."
Well. Yeah. Just hubris has a way of coming back and biting you in the butt.
It's funny they keep doing it. You keep seeing this.
I know. Yeah, the problem is these things happen so far after the fact. I feel like that's unless we can have a system where it's brought up in a more timely fashion, there's really no way this benefits the consumer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
And yet, the reason I was dressed in the American flag, besides my apparent nakedness, was I felt like all four of them did a great job of stating a strong case of how technology is a huge boon. It is a driver of the American economy, clearly, and we see it especially during COVID. It is an empowering thing. It gives people a voice. There is no one who would say there isn't a lot of positive to what those four companies have done. Huge amount.
Right.
I know, but listen, come on. This is this is overly dramatic. I apologize if this is insensitive, but I always bring up this example. If the Nazis had won World War II and had cured cancer, would that have made it okay? Yeah, there is good. I get, absolutely.
I don't think you could say any four of these companies have concentration camps.
It's overly dramatic. I admitted that, but I just, for whatever. Look, I get in a car and I have to drive to Boston. I absolutely rely on Google Maps because it has up-to-date information about speed traps and construction and traffic, and it reroutes me, and I rely on it. But it's also a fact that Google is tracking me all over the internet, including when I'm driving in my car. And they're selling that information to advertisers. And we've all had that weird moment where I wasn't Google searching this. I was talking to someone in a room, and I started seeing ads about this thing we were talking about. We've all experienced this. So, yeah, I know, not Nazis exactly, but, there's bad to it too.
Yeah.
All these companies, all of them.
Yeah.
It's nice getting Cheetos a day later. I love that. God bless Amazon for that. But Amazon has also put all kinds of small companies out of business, including especially bookstores. Did bookstores make strategic mistakes of their own? Yeah, probably.
Well, but okay, so did Amazon do it, or did we do it because we preferred Amazon?
Yeah. No, listen.
If you really like that independent bookstore,
yes,
America,
keep shopping with them.
Should have shopped with them.
And I'm absolutely part of that problem because
Amazon won because it did a better job. Isn't that the way it is?
It made it convenient. Yeah. That's what tech does. Tech makes things convenient, right? And a lot of people like me are willing to trade your privacy for it. Like if you said, am I upset Google tracks me? Yeah, but you know what? I'm okay with it if it's convenient.
That's a really good argument, but I don't think people understand what that even means, and I don't think they understand the danger and the badness that comes as part of it. Like, if you can't make an educated decision about the good or bad of something, then knowing about it and not caring almost doesn't matter. I don't mean you personally. But a lot of people. It's your
fault, Mary Jo.
Yeah, I feel seen.
Big tech is like McDonald's. Yeah, it is convenient. It goes down easy. And then 10 years later, you're like, well, I don't have any money, and why am I so fat? And is it my fault? Yes, it's my fault, I guess. I went to McDonald's, but McDonald's made it really easy. Drive-through windows, low prices.
Well, yeah, and this is a really deep philosophical question about how much of it is the government's job to protect us from ourselves.
Right.
And, you could make the case Mayor Bloomberg did that super gulp sodas are not good for people. But I think in hindsight, everyone agrees, maybe even Bloomberg, that wasn't a good law. Actually, I would argue that, again, I would argue to the contrary of that. That's like saying that, well, you could force people to wear helmets on motorcycles. But that is a good law. That saves lives and saves resources.
Why is it any difference? Because it happens quick? Seriously.
I feel like it's an American right to get fat.
But why?
Because I don't think we should have a right to head injuries.
Healthcare costs that handicap your family and your friends and everyone around you. It doesn't. It happens in slow motion.
Okay.
But it's still the same net effect. You're still harming other people.
There's somewhere, we don't know where it is. There's a line where, seatbelt laws, helmet laws, that makes sense. Big gulp. We'll put that somewhere in the gray area.
How are these things not exactly the same? You ever sit on a plane?
But saying,
and there's like one seat next to you.
No, I understand. But saying McDonald's is
on the plane and you're like, here we go, 5 hours in the air next to this guy. Why am I paying for this?
No, I agree.
But okay, if you really take your argument to an extreme, then we can start getting into, should you be eating meat? Should I be able to tell you shouldn't be eating meat? I'm saying that. Right?
That's what I'm saying.
Where's the line?
There's a line somewhere, which maybe is gray, but there is a point beyond which you shouldn't go. And I think it's pretty clear that saying a company is too successful, we don't like that.
Yeah. No. But that can't be
beyond the pale.
The answer can't be like, my favorite band got too big and now I don't like them anymore. Right. That's not the. Yeah. My favorite band doesn't exclude other bands from performing music and, appearing live in certain places or whatever. I mean, big tech is a different animal. It is. The problem is literally the two tenets of antitrust, depending on where you are, which is harm to consumers and harm to competition.
Right.
And I don't think we need to live in a completely socialist world where all competitors are equal. If anything, that's the biggest problem we have in our country today is all ideas are good. Let's give everyone some air, But the problem I think is what I said earlier up front. It's just the laws literally have not evolved to address the problems of big tech, and trying to solve them with the same antitrust rules that we applied to, American Steel or U.S. Steel or whatever that was back in the day, or U.S. Rail, whatever it was.
U.S. Steel.
U.S. Is maybe a losing battle.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that they're having a conversation.
You do, yeah. I feel like okay, so let's say this goes to its complete end, and they say, okay, let's break them up. I don't think that's the right answer to the problem either.
That's the real question: is what could
what do they want,
Congress do that would make sense? And I think we're very far from an answer to that question.
Listen, we only have 2 hours. Right. We can't address this problem, but here's a theory that kind of applies. Like, what was better when we had 3 major networks on TV in the United States, or today when we have 11,000 different choices? What was better? Way more choice or too little choice, and the power was all concentrated with these 3 big companies. Like, which one was better?
Right.
There's no answer to this question. I mean, it's a trick, right? There are pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
There's also, and I would say that our audience shares my trepidations about government trying to find a solution to these very subtle and thorny problems. There's kind of a mismatch between the speed of tech and they're not trying to solve it.
They're not trying to solve any problems.
No.
This literally has turned into like everything else in this country. It's just partisan nonsense.
Yeah.
It's like you said, the Republicans are just about, anti-conservative bias in social media, and the Democrats just care about antitrust apparently, which is I find a little hard to believe myself. But they're not going to solve any problems.
No.
What they've really done is just given these guys a platform to do what you said they did, which was lay out really good cases for why they exist.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's nothing more pro-American than Google.
Well,
from maybe Apple.
These are great American success stories, right? I think Apple Tim had a very strong argument. He said, we are not dominant in any market in which we compete. We are not dominant. We're just trying to make the best products. And in no case, phones, computing, operating systems, are we even close to dominant. So what's your problem, guys? You got a problem with us?
I mean, between Google and Apple, they control 100% of all the smartphones that are used in the United States. And it's almost a 50-50 split. It's something like 58 to 42.
Yeah, but Google doesn't control those. Android controls those. In fact, it's really more Samsung. So that's the thing. It's no traditional way is this a monopoly.
It's a duopoly.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the platform goes.
But it's not even a duopoly because Google doesn't control those. It makes a free operating system that they use.
Yeah.
Samsung announces next week a new partnership with Google in which they've dropped Bixby in their, their store.
And Microsoft, right?
Just to be clear, that had not happened.
No, it has not.
It will not happen, I don't think. Yeah, it's an interesting. Well, look, everybody knows this is a conundrum. This is all we discuss on This Week in Google each and every week. So
yeah. I was thinking about how I feel about this now versus how I felt about the antitrust trial with Microsoft, because I got to actually go and be at the trial for a couple of weeks. Yeah. And okay, I was younger and more like kind of more into like, let's get them, right?
Yeah, no, me too.
Now I'm just kind of like, good luck, Congress. I don't think you're going to do anything. It's not going to matter.
But actually, I'm on exactly the same page as you are on this. At the time, I almost violently felt that Microsoft needed to be broken up.
Me too.
But I really, again, this goes back to that notion that Microsoft was literally personal technology. There was, who was number 2 in personal tech in 1998, and what tiny single-digit percentage of any market or usage share did they have? These 4 companies are humongous, and they almost don't cross over with each other. And the problem, of course, is that their audience sizes are so much bigger than anything Microsoft had. But Microsoft, just as a percentage of what was possible and available and what people were doing, it was like high 90% something. They were dominant.
So here's the question.
I think that was part of it.
Let me throw a little grenade into that.
Yeah.
Can't you say that the current state of tech is to some large degree the result of the Department of Justice's prosecution of Microsoft in the 90s? That gave Google an entry? That gave Apple an entry?
Yes and no, because
Bill Gates wouldn't have thrown $150 million into a failing Apple, except that he needed them to be a strong competitor.
So I would say that from an actual behavioral remedy perspective, the EU did far more damage to Microsoft than America ever did. And that indirectly, because of antitrust, both here and EU and South Korea and other places, they were distracted for a long time. And that distraction is what allowed Apple to resurge and Google to come to market and Amazon to happen the way it did, Facebook and social networking and so forth. Those are markets that Microsoft would have tried to squash had it had the same market power it had in 1998. And it was distracted. But it wasn't literally because the Department of Justice won in court and here's the behavioral remedies we're handing down.
It just distracted them, but that was still worked.
That's what it did. It distracted them. And by the way,
the stuff they had to do, they got afraid. It made them afraid, right? Because after that, they were more afraid to bundle things because they said, look what just happened to us. We're not going to do this again. And it took decades for them to finally say, you know what? We're going to start bundling things because everybody else is.
Yeah, no one cares anymore. It's like, they bundle things like, except for Slack.
I know. Right.
So I will say, like, what's going on with Microsoft, or what's going on right now with these 4 companies, it's possible that just this exposure will trigger some rethinking at these companies. They'll just throw out a couple of olive branches, whatever. But in the EU, you're definitely going to see each of these companies be found guilty of something. And they will demand behavioral changes from them, which may or may not only happen in Europe, whatever. It doesn't matter. But it will be just like the Microsoft thing. Those guys slowly, ploddingly, everything in Europe happens on an unbelievable scale, but it will eventually happen, and we'll see. So, but I think there's going to be major change that comes out of this. Not out of this thing today. This is nonsense, but still fascinating,
Yeah. Be careful, because I think the EU action will be perceived as anti-American by some.
For sure.
And in fact, you can make that argument. It's the anti-Google stuff is really created by EU publishers who don't like it that Google has so much power in the EU. They'd like,
Well, I know, but I'm sorry, guys, but that we do business there, and they have a right to have their own laws. And I know it's a lot easier for us to complain when it's China,
right?
But when it's EU, it's like, well, they're a little closer to us. That's embarrassing. Yeah. I mean, sorry. They do have their own laws.
No, they can do it. No one's saying you can't, but it's just it's going to be perceived as anti-American, and it might well be.
Yeah, but we should perceive what we're doing to China as pro-American. I mean, we're trying to prop up the businesses that maybe in their own ways were artificially not created.
Mark Zuckerberg was very quick to mention TikTok in his opening statement. He mentioned TikTok.
Yep. You going to let those guys get away with that?
In your article on Thurrott.com, which is beautifully titled "Copy, Acquire, Kill,"
I didn't.
You say this is the big tech's big tobacco moment, but This is the striking difference. Big Tobacco came in there and said, our products aren't addictive. Nobody ever got addicted.
I know, but you see, these guys came out and said, we're not dominant. You know, the company that it has almost $2 trillion in market cap said, we don't dominate any markets. Why am I even here?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Was this a brilliant strategy by Tim Cook not to dominate even a single market? Are you serious?
No. Well, he said our strategy is to make the best product possible.
Right.
And I think Apple is demonstrably not trying to acquire massive market share.
Yeah, Apple's
if they were,
kind of
they'd
the
have
odd
cheaper
one out
stuff.
in this group.
Yeah, they'd do it cheaper phones. They're not.
Right. They're there because of the store, right? They're not there because they are dominant in a market.
That's frankly going to be the hard case for Apple to make is the store.
I don't think there is any case they can make that makes any sense for the App Store policies. Yeah. That's what's going to change.
All four of them, of course, said, we welcome regulation.
Right.
We're glad to be here for this.
We don't even have to have a hearing. We could just...
Yeah. We're glad to be part of this conversation.
Yeah. You know, the other part that's different between this and the Microsoft trial is the Microsoft trial was about tech. I mean, like they talked about things like APIs and that kind of stuff. This is more about tech, but it's also wrapped into, like we said, the bias issue, but even more than that, like manipulating voters, right? Like there's all these other themes that are in this.
There's a lot of politics
this whole round, right? And that were not really part of the Microsoft one. Microsoft one was
that's
like,
what I mean.
They're up on the stand talking about they're just talking more about like how do you tie things together and how do you prevent your OEM partners from having a choice? This is like a whole different thing that we're talking about this time. Right.
But that's what I mean by the scope of what's happening today. I mean, how many PCs were sold in 1998? 100 million? Less? Microsoft owned 99% of that. Huge dominance within that market. Google has, 5 billion customers? All of these companies have a much bigger influence than Microsoft ever did because it goes so far beyond, you sitting in front of a goofy computer and hitting a power button and waiting for it to come on and you just figured out how to use I don't mean you, Mary Jo. Well, we just collectively figured out how to use mice and keyboards.
But what this is evidence of something we know, that we watched this happen over the last 3 decades, the injection of technology into every facet of human life. I mean, we live in a technological world now, high-tech world, and these companies' influence has grown to match, the importance of it in the world.
We have not, like we've been talking about this for decades, the laws just have not evolved to handle this.
I don't think there should be any laws, honestly. I don't see what law you would make that would, in the long run, make any sense. Maybe there should be better scrutiny of acquisitions. I could think you could make the case. There are all kinds
of laws you could make around privacy, what you can do with personal data.
Privacy, yeah, sure. Sure. And both, I think both Google and Apple understand that this is a hot button topic. I don't know if Facebook understands it. Or if they understand it, whether they're willing to do it. But I think Google absolutely understands that they've got to do better. And I think they believe they're doing better. Pichai even said that. Tim Cook clearly has made privacy a linchpin of their go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, they're really private, for example, about why they don't charge 30% to their own app developers. They never talk about that.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a break because we do have actual Microsoft news. I just thought it was interesting that Nadella wasn't on that stage. And maybe
I don't think they belong there. Yeah.
They don't belong there. And I think also really a lot of credit goes to Nadella for navigating this in a way that they did not have to be on the hot seat. And that, again, is something learned in the 90s. I don't think it means having more lobbyists in Washington, D.C. I think it means, I think you tie it directly, Paul, to Nadella saying we want to be wherever our customers are on any platform, to dropping the best experiences on Windows.
That's a very pro-Microsoft stance. I would say that the real reason is they've just failed with consumers and they wish they were under the scrutiny. They just have nothing.
I think it's a mix of the two. Yeah, I do. I feel like they want to look like the kinder, gentler Microsoft, but they also would love to be a monopolist if they could.
Hey, I'd love to have a monopoly on all podcasting. It ain't going to happen.
Wouldn't you? See?
Yeah.
See?
No, I wouldn't. Actually, I wouldn't. I firmly believe that having a lot of shows is a good thing for everybody. from a lot of different points of view. Not,
of course, you would say that, but what do you really think?
Exactly.
What did not yet come up, and now that we're doing the show, I won't be able to listen, but I will certainly listen tonight with great attention to encryption, because that's honestly the most important thing that will happen today.
Yeah, that's another great example of something that might end up becoming some form of law is encryption.
Yeah, and that's why I don't want a law. By the way, because Congress should not in any way get themselves involved in this, but they clearly will. And I don't think it's an antitrust issue, but I find it. No, I have a hard time believing that these guys won't bring it up.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to see if they bring it up, and I'm very curious to see what they say.
Backdoors are always fine. That's the important thing to remember. There's never any problem.
No problem. Nothing wrong with it. If I were Tim Cook, who of course has been the most adamant about not putting backdoors in his product, I would say look at Eternal Blue, the NSA exploit that was created just for purposes of spying.
Yeah, the gift that keeps on giving.
And it leaked out through inattention and bad security on the part of the NSA, and is now a massive problem with ransomware.
It's a ransomware thing now,
Yep.
And, NotPetya used it. I don't know if the current crop of ransomware does. I would bet it does, that when it goes worming around the network, it's probably using Eternal Blue. That's a perfect example of a technology that was in the hands of the government, was theoretically kept quiet, kept secret by the most secure agency in our country, and they didn't do it, and they couldn't, and now we're all paying a huge price. And that's all Tim Cook needs to bring up. Not that these members of Congress would understand, but
that's the other
exactly.
These are the antitrust guys, and they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, they're better than the senators. Although, within half an hour, there was a guy accusing Facebook of doing something Twitter did. So,
yeah, right. That was
within 3 questions.
Yeah, it's like that was Twitter, but I could probably answer the question.
Well, Mr. Congressman, I just say that wasn't me, but something like me. Maybe you're confusing. I do want to talk about Microsoft's results, because we had earnings, and of course they were very, very good. But we're going to read in the tea leaves a little bit, see if we can dig deeper below the surface to figure out what it all means.
Oh, I think we can.
Can you?
Mm-hmm. We can.
That's why they're here. Mary Jo Foley, Paul Thurrott, all about Microsoft. We could have called it all about Microsoft, really, but it's
somebody owns that trademark.
Though.
You didn't want that Foley person suing us, Leo.
Never mind. Never mind. Our show today brought to you by Barracuda. Actually, when you're talking about ransomware, this is so apropos. Barracuda, they're the provider of some of the best security appliances and software in the industry. Cloud-enabled enterprise-grade security solutions for your email, your networks, your data, your applications. I want to talk to you about one of their products today, Barracuda's Total Email Protection. But let me put this in perspective. Great article this week in Bloomberg Business Week about the ransomware attack on Norsk Hydro, one of the biggest aluminum producers in the world. All over the world, U.S., Brazil, Norway, their headquarters, got hit by ransomware, and it cost them $60 million. It took them down for weeks. They had to do things like make aluminum parts by fax machine on paper. They were just devastated by this ransomware attack. And you want to know how it got in? Oh, man. It wasn't a phishing attack, actually, but it was an email attack. 91% of all cyber attacks start in an email. Here's one you may not have thought about. The whole Norsk Hydro thing began when a customer in Italy sent an email, legit email with an attachment to an employee at Norsk Hydro talking about business. The employee expected the email, expected the attachment. They'd all agreed ahead of time. But hackers were able to intercept. They were able to hijack the email conversation. They were able to intercept, replace the attachment with a malicious payload, and send it on. It, in every respect, looked like exactly the email that employee was expecting. I presume the employee had some training and awareness of phishing scams. That's not phishing. We know this is our Italian customer. Opened it. It's over. They opened it in December. The entire company was taken down in March. For 4 months, the bad guys got to wander the network, probe all the weaknesses, really figure out what they wanted to do. This is the new ransomware. This is how it happens now. It's very targeted, scary stuff, and that comes in email. Now, Mr. Businessman, Mr. CEO, Mr. Owner, Mr. IT Department, Mr. CISO. Think about this. You have how many thousands of emails coming into your company every single day? In many cases, they're not just coming into your company, they're coming into your employees' homes. Are they working from home? That's really a tough environment. Thousands of emails going outside the company. 91% of all cyber attacks start in an email. Spear phishing, ransomware, account takeover, conversation hijacking. Here's another great one. Conversation hijacking. They take over a conversation between a payee and your bookkeeper and they say, yeah, we changed the bank account. Here's the new number, and the bookkeeper sends millions of dollars out of your company into a bad guy's pockets, and it's that quick and that easy. One wrong click on a wrong email can cost you money, can cost you customers, can cost you reputation. Barracuda researchers also have noted in the last few months a spike between February and now of 667% in corona-related spear phishing attacks. Bad guys impersonate the WHO or the CDC. They impersonate local authorities with new regulations. These are emails that look completely indistinguishable from the real deal. And your employees look at them and go, yeah, I need to know that. And they open it and boom, it's over. You need the protection of Barracuda Total Email Protection. It's for Office 365 accounts. In fact, in just a second, I'm going to tell you how you can get a free scan so you can see if you've got any of that kind of stuff in your email right now, right this minute. You get all-in-one email security. You get backup and archiving. That's actually important in a lot of, as you know, in a lot of businesses, you have a requirement, a legal requirement to keep your email for 3, 5, 7 years. They'll help you with that. They have protection from spear phishing, AI-based, which is important because these attacks change every minute. The bad guys don't just keep sending the same email. They refine it. They tune it. They aim it specifically at you and your employees. You need protection that is as smart as they are, evolves as fast as they do. They have automated incident response. This is something, too, very important. The faster you can respond and mitigate, the less damage is done. So with Barracuda's Total Email Protection, you have an automated incident response that gives you options to quickly and efficiently address attacks. One button push, boom, that email's gone. You can do that, and that's really important. And then they do training with your employees to educate your workforce because your employees, after all, are the first line of defense against attacks. And, of course, because Barracuda is the top in this business, they know more than anybody. They've been doing this for so long. They're going to give you the best possible training because they've already incorporated the lessons from things like Norsk Hydro and the Garmin incident, which just happened. Ensure the safety and security of your business with Barracuda. To uncover the threats hiding right now in your inbox, get a secure, free email threat scan of your Office 365 account, the whole thing. It's risk-free. You can get it at barracuda.com/windows, barracuda.com/windows, BARRACUDA, Barracuda, like the fish, .com/windows. Barracuda is your journey secured. So it was such a good article, that Norsk Hydro piece, and it was so scary. I don't know if you guys read it in Bloomberg Business Week, but highly recommended. It was so scary because it was the simplest little thing. And they talked to the plant manager in New York State, and he said, this one little guy, this one jerk, and we're like the amount of work, the number of days nights he had to spend there, devastating.
Yep.
And it's literally getting worse and worse and worse and worse because they're getting very targeted. There's a whole bunch of these guys now going after specific targeted businesses. And you told me, Paul, I didn't know this story. On Sunday when Paul was on Twit, by the way, you were great on Twit. Thank you for being on.
Oh, no, I was happy to do it.
That you guys got hit by ransomware.
Yeah, my company. For $487. I was like, I guess it's a revolving scale based on how much you make or something. I don't know.
They knew.
Yeah.
But see,
let's keep this one realistic.
That's what's different. You didn't pay, I presume, or did you?
No,
of course not. You guys had backups. But that's the difference. Those were kind of these general, attacks that this whole thing started with. Now these guys are very sharp, and they go after a company. It's really terrifying.
That's scary.
Yeah. I don't, every day I talk to Russell. I say, "Are we safe?" He said, "We're safe." I said, "Are you sure?" We're safe. Okay. Yeah, I'd hate to be in IT right now. Let's talk about the results. They came in right after the show last week.
Yeah, we had a bolt.
Yeah. Did you get any juice in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Afterwards, we got a little more juice after the earnings were over, but
well, tell us.
I want to address something. I'm not going to call anybody out here, but I had made a joke, one of my 14 million jokes on Twitter about Microsoft benefiting from COVID, and I know that's an uncomfortable reality for people, but Microsoft has benefited from COVID. Sorry.
You can, of course.
Yeah.
All you have to do is look at stock prices in the tech sector, which are going like this. Look at Zoom. Is it safe to say Zoom has benefited from COVID? Yes.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right.
Yep.
Of course, that's not. That's not
one of the
saying
reminders
a good thing.
That I think I do, and I assume Mary Jo does as well. View Microsoft today as a more ethical entity than it was in the late 1990s. Let's say it's still a company, right? And I had gotten an inside story from some folks about Microsoft dropping support for small businesses early in the pandemic because it knew that these companies were all going to go out of business and couldn't pay it. So it's like we're just going to drop support for that stuff, and we're going to head toward the businesses that will do well for us. And by the way, in these earnings, they actually kind of mentioned that. Not that they
did
dropped support for small businesses, but that small businesses have dropped off the face of the earth. And that's a reality. That's a sad reality of the COVID pandemic. But, there are businesses that frankly should have been flat to nowhere. Windows, Surface, and especially Xbox that did great this quarter because people are stuck at home. They need to buy computers and they play video games.
But there's a big difference between Microsoft accidentally benefiting from that and Microsoft kind of. Oh,
no, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just. Well, but there are. Okay, so. Look, the circumstances are what they are. So cloud usage is exploding. PC sales are a temporary spike. Xbox software and content. Content and services are a temporary spike. That's just circumstance. But Microsoft very, I don't want to say cold-heartedly, but pragmatically, back in I think it was February, maybe March, looked at what was happening and said, if you guys are working on small business stuff, we're not doing that anymore. So go work on something else. You need to find something that's going to make money. And that's a business, So sorry, but I mean, that's what happened. And, you see this is the first full quarter under COVID for Microsoft and for everyone. And it's interesting because it's so skewed compared to how it would be normally because of COVID.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the number that stood out to me, so here's how we do earnings. We see the press release, then we go onto the Microsoft investor site, and then we see all the slides that they're going to show during the earnings call. And the number that just jumped out to me was how OEM Pro sales of Windows were way down. And OEM, what do they call it? Non-Pro sales were way up, right?
Which, by the way, I was like, that is completely opposite of the way you. Yep.
It is. It's the total opposite of how it usually is, right?
So does that mean, what does that mean? It means people were buying their own computers or?
Yes, that's what it means. Yep. It means people were going to Best Buy and other retail outlets.
People were buying actual computers. And that's something that doesn't
That makes sense, though, because even a business that's going to survive COVID is going to be careful about capital expenditures if they don't have to make them, right?
That's right.
Right. But the OEM Pro number being way off, I immediately asked, what's that? And they said SMBs are struggling or going out of business, and they usually buy PCs through their companies, and it's not
Microsoft's fault.
No, it's not Microsoft's fault, but it's the new reality. Yeah. And so that number is usually very strong for them. And it was really, what was it, like 4% or something? It was tiny.
Yeah, 4% drop. It was a 4% drop.
Yeah, 4% drop.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was one obvious thing. And then the Office numbers also had the same issue where things that were normally sold to SMBs were way off, and that affected the Office revenues too.
Did you get a seats number for Office 365 or Microsoft 365 commercial?
Yeah.
So I saw a growth figure.
Yeah. So Microsoft doesn't really talk in their earnings about certain numbers, right? Like we know they never talk about Azure And they've never, as far as I know, given out a Microsoft 365 number. But I heard
I don't mean, sorry. I don't mean revenues. I meant seats, like number of people.
Oh, seats. No, they didn't say.
They do give that one out not every quarter. Yeah.
Yeah, they give it out every once in a while, right? Which is kind of weird.
But they didn't do it.
They
okay,
give it
I just
as
wanted to make sure because I didn't see it anywhere.
No, they didn't. They've been giving out the Microsoft 365 consumer number consistently, number of seats, but not commercial.
And by the way, within the confines of what that is, grew very large.
It did.
Grew a lot. I don't know the exact percentage increase, but 3 million units up to 42.7.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so the Microsoft 365 number all up is an interesting number, right? Like, that's a number we've always wanted to know. Like, okay, so Microsoft 365, Windows subscription plus Office 365 subscription plus EMS, Enterprise Mobility and Security. What's that number? And they never tell you on the earnings call what that number is. But this past week, it was not just Inspire, Microsoft's partner conference, but it was also their Ready internal conference for employees and some partners. And I heard they gave out a number on Microsoft 365 at that conference. And that number is massive. In fiscal 2020, Microsoft made $20 billion on Microsoft 365 commercial. So when you see that they said we had $50 million last year in commercial cloud, that category they've created that they've pulled all different parts of the business into to have a metric, $20 billion of that is Microsoft 365.
So we got to stop here and think about what this means, though, because is 20 billion, is all of that part of the 50 billion of commercial cloud?
Yep, I just asked that today, and they said yes.
Oh, really?
Well, they didn't confirm the 20 billion number, but they said all Microsoft 365 revenues are part of commercial cloud, commercial only.
Okay, so I mean, a big chunk of that, though, is technically Windows 10 licenses, right?
Only Windows 10 sold through subscriptions.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yes. But I mean, right.
Right.
I mean, a big chunk of it, I mean, theoretically would be derived from Windows 10, or at least Windows 10 is part of the benefit. I mean, so this is like a thing that is benefiting a part of the company that Windows 10 is not within, right? From a business organization standpoint, which is kind of makes this. So if you think about like more personal computing, which is the part of the business that Windows 10 is within, I'd have to look it up. I probably have it here somewhere, but that business it was probably somewhere in the 13 something billion range. You know, it's been in the 11 billion range recently. I'm sorry, I can't find it. But, you know, the majority of that, especially now with Xbox where it is, and Surface is a couple billion, would come from Windows, you know? So it's interesting. So, I mean, it's like Windows is contributing in two different parts of the company.
It is. So, you know, I know there are people who believe the way Microsoft discloses its financials is meant to help people understand how they make their money. It's actually not.
It's mental. And I was going to say, I do think that.
What is it? Yeah. Then? What's its point?
No, it's meant to obfuscate how they make their money.
How funny.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
So the way the company organizes their reporting, you know, more personal computing, intelligent cloud, that has no bearing on how they talk about their numbers at all. Like those are just these artificial categories that they've balanced in a way to make them all look equal, roughly equal. And it pulls different things from different parts of the company that aren't necessarily together as a business. That's why it makes it so hard to figure out how they're really doing, right?
Yeah, you're putting your finger on the scale. You know?
Yeah.
You want to balance things out quarter over quarter.
Right.
You don't want to freak out Wall Street.
Right. Exactly.
Although the one thing Wall Street does seem to freak out about, which I don't understand, is the slowing growth rate of Azure.
I know.
Right? In fact, I think their stock price actually dropped in the wake of this unbelievable, they make like 38 billion in revenues overall. And then their stock price went down. It was like, Azure saw revenue growth of 47%.
Right. On some number we don't know.
Yeah, right. I mean, right. But I mean,
so I had a chance to ask them again this quarter. I said, so, you know, that 47%, it may be a bigger number than it looks like because it's on a bigger base. 47% growth on a bigger number of large numbers, right?
And they're like, of course, this Yeah, so back when it was in the 70s growth for a long time.
Yeah, it was in the 70s when they were smaller.
Unsustainable. Right? Yeah, it was. Right. That's unsustainable. So the fact that this thing is a mature, you got to remember Azure. I mean, how long has Azure been around now? 15 years almost.
20?
At least I think it's 15 years, right? It's a long time. This is a mature, business. 47% growth. That's crazy.
Yeah. I know. It's massive. Right. So Azure launched in 2008. So it's 12 years old, right? Okay. But
we just talked about an unusual increase in Windows PC sales to consumers, right? And a 4% drop in pro sales, right? I mean, usually these things are single digit. This is a mature market. I mean, obviously PC growth isn't going anywhere. 47% growth.
I know. It's massive.
That's
multiple $10 million plus contracts were signed in the quarter for Azure. It's big, right? And people were like, yeah, but you know what? They're only growing 47%. And like a year ago, they're growing 60-something%. I'm like, yeah, but what was the base? Last year, it was a much smaller base, right? It seems kind of basic to me that this comes up every time, but it does.
They'll never provide numbers for Azure, like hard numbers, right? I mean, I think I've just resigned to that. But they did give some sort of Azure adjacent numbers, which I thought were kind of interesting, and I don't believe I've ever seen these before. Azure Active Directory has more than 345 million monthly active users. I don't know that they've ever said anything like that.
I don't think they have ever said that.
Yeah, 200,000 organizations. That gives you a rough idea of, I would call that, it's not the all of the enterprise, but it's a big chunk of it. I mean, and then Azure Sentinel now has more than 6,500 customers. I mean, we're pulling for strings here. We just, anything we can get from Azure, but
I know. I think it's crazy. And the other number I really fixated on this earnings quarter was they gave an E5 percentage. So you know how we talk about the SKUs of Microsoft 365? They talk about, F3 and E3 and E5.
Did they give this in the earnings, or was this from the Ready?
So there's two parts.
Okay.
And during the earnings, they said our business in E5, which is their most expensive and highest end SKU of Office 365 and Microsoft 365, doubled. They said it doubled, but they didn't give us a number. It doubled over what? But at Ready, I hear they told them the number. And so E5 alone, just that SKU, $7.5 billion for the year. That's a lot of E5, right?
This is, and it's a small percentage of the overall subscriber base because it's so expensive, right? Because it's like $57 per month.
Right. Per person. Yeah.
Per person. That's right. Sorry. Yes. So actually, I think the figure you got was 5% of the total Office 365 seats.
It was.
It generated.
That's what I heard. Yeah. Which means there's a giant opportunity for their sales force to upsell this to people. And so, what Microsoft does is they keep adding features into E5 that are things that a lot of people want around security and compliance and Project Cortex. The knowledge management stuff's going to be in there. So they're trying to dangle it like a carrot, right? And say, come on, you want the E5, even though it's way more expensive.
What's $57 between friends?
Exactly. So, that's a big moneymaker for them, right? Like that's, if alone E5 is $7.5 billion out of the $20 billion of Microsoft 365, that's huge, right?
Yep.
So I would just say, in short, Office 365 is killing it, right? Like they're killing it with that, and that's reflective in Microsoft 365. But that part of the business, when you talk about Microsoft Commercial Cloud, that's what's growing really, really fast and driving the rest of it, right?
And in many ways, I mean, this is the new version of one of Microsoft's oldest businesses, right? I mean, Office dates back to the 1980s. Yes, basically. I mean, a Word and Excel.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
Poster child.
How'd Xbox do?
Xbox sucks.
They did good, right?
No, actually, they did well. They did well because people are playing at home, and so.
Yeah.
There were no sales from a hardware perspective that anyone was talking about. But what there was a bunch of content and services sales. I got to go find them.
Yeah. And Surface, by the way, up 28%, right? And that was heavily due to people buying PCs because of working at home.
Yeah, I thought that was really an interesting number.
Yeah, Microsoft gaming revenues are up 64%.
Wow.
Yeah. Thanks entirely.
So tomorrow we get Apple's numbers. And I'm just really, one of the things people are concerned about is services declining for Apple. So I'll be very interested. It sounds like Microsoft, which is also, Apple's come around in a way to the Microsoft way of thinking that services are their most important business.
They have such a huge user base that they can do pretty well in services, but
they don't do services well. It's not a good.
No,
it's not.
And I don't think none of that seems essential to me. Even if I was an Apple hardware user, I would use other cloud storage. I would use other music. I would use other video services.
Their focus completely comes from the fact that they've saturated the market and with phones.
Yeah.
And so now the only growth is revenue per customer, revenue per user.
They need another market they can't dominate. That's what they're doing.
we want
Why
one
don't
more
they do
market,
an Office suite? Come on.
Yeah.
They do. They have one. They have an Office
a better
suite.
one. I mean, like a competitive one.
Yeah, it's not competitive. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So no, it's good to see. Microsoft really, if anything, has shifted from a software company to a services company, right?
They really have. Yep.
So you'd expect to see that, and they certainly.
Right. So their total revenue for last year was 143 billion, and of that, 50 million was this thing they call commercial cloud, right?
50 billion.
A third.
50 billion,
a third of their total revenue was cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Commercial cloud.
Well,
commercial cloud. Yeah.
That's Azure.
That's Azure, Office 365 for business, and like SQL in the cloud and Power BI, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
They're following IBM into the cloud.
And dominating IBM completely in the cloud.
Yeah, they own it. They really own it.
IB who?
IB who?
I know. Yeah.
Anything else that you gleaned from that?
I think that's the big stuff. Mary Jo had the stories about Microsoft 365 revenue.
Yeah.
And was there something? Was there another part of this? Or maybe I'm thinking of the Windows 10 stuff.
Yeah.
I guess that's most of it from the revenues.
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest parts of what people were focused on during earnings.
Is there anything you can deduce about the future from this stuff? I mean, it seems like full speed ahead. They're doing well, right?
Yeah, we can look at what they've said, and what they basically said is more of the same for the current quarter. That makes sense, right? I mean, this COVID thing's going to continue.
Yeah. SMB down, right? Enterprise up.
Well, I have to think that
it's the holiday, and you get
hardware sales tail off, don't they? I mean, everybody who wanted a computer because of work from home's got one now.
That's a good point. Actually, that might have been part of what they did say. Surface. Yeah, so Surface revenues will go. It was 28%. They're expecting mid-teen growth in the current quarter. So that's going to go down. And then Windows revenues will decline year over year as the pandemic buying frenzy winds down as well. Yep. So, yes, I mean, those parts of it are going to calm down. But they've got big events coming in the fall, right? So there should be more hardware.
Yep.
Both from Surface and Xbox coming in the months ahead. And I guess it's
Azure will just keep going.
Well, Ignite's coming. I mean, there's going to be a ton of announcements around Ignite in September as well.
Yeah.
All right. Good. A good quarter.
Yeah.
Microsoft.
Or as one analyst called it, mixed.
Mixed? Really?
38 billion.
Mixed. What did he expect?
I don't know. Infinity? I don't know. What are you looking for exactly? Yeah.
Well, we'd like to see more. Sure, I would too.
Yes. I mean,
who wouldn't? So
what was the revenue growth? Revenue growth was 15% year over year.
That's pretty good. In fact, I think that's COVID. I don't think you're going to see that kind of revenue growth, right? That's kind of unusual.
It's possible. I mean, some of it just shifted around. I mean, I think there was massive growth in certain parts of the company, and then other parts kind of slowed down. They balanced it out a little bit, but definitely COVID contributed. Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Didn't realize this 5th anniversary of Windows 10.
I know.
Wow. This is why I want to cue the confetti machine I don't have in my office yet.
They grow up so fast.
I've spent
Can you
a bunch
believe
of time.
that was 5 years ago?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It also
feels longer.
I thought it was 10 years ago.
If you had to ask, that's
5.
interesting. All three of us had the same reaction.
Exactly.
Should be 10 years.
So the thing is, like, Windows 10 is tough because from a day-to-day user experience standpoint, has not changed almost at all. Obviously there's been a million tiny changes, but you could make a pretty good argument that except for some processes, the big changes all came already in Windows 8.1.1. We got the start menu back, and the basic UI is the same. The store was there, store apps, even though they didn't call them that. The Windows 10 brought the one Windows thing, which went nowhere fast, but we had apps that would run across phone and tablet and PC and Xbox, and that was kind of fun for a little while. But I think the biggest change is probably Windows as a service, which I would argue has kind of failed, but this attempt to keep Windows 10 up to date as if it were an online service, But at least we have the ads and the crapware, and that's working out good. Telemetry.
Ads and crapware. We love.
Yep, big growth areas.
Oh my! Yeah. So it's like, or ads and crapware and telemetry. Oh my.
Yeah, I saw a picture of me standing next to Gabe All at the launch, and I'm like, oh yeah, Gabe All was running the Insiders program, and we were so full of optimism back then, weren't we?
Right. Or you go back to the previous October, we went to that event, remember, or maybe it was the end of September, right at the end of September that year, so that would have been, 2014? We were in New York, I guess, probably, or was it Seattle? I don't remember. Anyway, but they, Joe Belfiore came out and Terry Morrison. We met Gabe All that day.
Yeah.
And it was, it seemed like they were righting the ship,
Yeah.
Because obviously things got a little wobbly in the Windows 8 time frame.
Yeah.
A little wobbly.
Wibble wobbles.
But yeah,
Just a little. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's fundamentally, it's the same. It's the same operating system. And if you want to think about it in terms of how Windows has gone over the years, you'd have to go back probably to Windows XP for this type of evolution on the same system, same platform, essentially. And in that case, it was because of delays with Longhorn. But they kept trying to refresh XP to make it seem a little less stale, tablet, media center, and we got the UI refresh and the reloaded stuff, and because we're 5 years in. This is when we've been on a 3-year cycle for the most part for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
21H1. I can't believe I'm talking about it. 21.
I know.
H1.
How we're going to explain what's going on here?
If there is a 21H1, let's just say that.
What?
See, there you go.
What?
Now you're turning it into like a Sci-Fi Channel exclusive, like.
What? What are you saying here?
Right. We can't even say they're adding features, 21H1 features, because you know how they keep saying the features you're testing in the dev channel may or may not be what's in the next version.
They're not real.
What? That's great. I love it.
They're not real.
We can't promise.
Yeah.
Can't promise
we can't really
anything.
promise that.
Don't get your hopes up.
Let's see if I can get through this super quick couple sentences. They've released a bunch of features into the dev channel, which used to be the fast ring, which is 21H1 or later, we think. Although, remember, I speculated some of the stuff could come earlier. Mm-hmm. They also did a bunch of A/B testing, which meant that not everyone in the dev channel got all of these new features. That caused a little bit of a problem, as you might imagine. But it caused an even bigger problem last week when they released a bunch of those features to the the beta channel. And there was not any
A/B
testing.
Which really is 20H2.
Which really is 20H2, right? Which is the version coming out in a few months.
Yeah.
And then today, they released a new build in the fastring/dev channel that adds no new features, but they took off the A/B testing. So anyone who was upset that the beta channel got the features without any handcuffs that they didn't get, now they have them too. Everyone get that?
Yeah.
And did anybody get that? It's kind of confusing.
Right.
But yes,
so the reason we're saying is or isn't there going to be a 21H1 is because a week ago I heard some information that implied there might not be a 21H1, and instead they might use the spring to release new 10X, Windows 10X versions, and the fall to release plain old Windows 10 feature updates. So if that's true, there won't be a 21H1, although they have not said that yet.
And that means that we're going to get to what I would call the least acceptable, compromise that we really wanted, which was one version of Windows 10 per year.
That would be good.
Yes, it would be good. Yes. So you could make the argument that in 2019 and this year in 2020, that what Microsoft has done is shipped a soft release of a major update in the spring, didn't deploy it to everybody, spent an additional 6 months improving it, and then more broadly deployed it out to a wider group of customers, including business customers who can thus be supported for a longer period of time, because that's one of the other benefits of the H2 releases. But now they're kind of formalizing this into, okay, we'll just release the one in the fall. We know that's the only one anyone wants anyway. Plus, we need to divert some engineering for Windows 10X.
Yep.
So we'll do that in the spring.
All right.
That's not about.
Yeah. I think it would be good to only have one feature update a year, since I still don't have 2004 on my Surface laptop as of today, which is July 29th.
Have it on Surface Go 2 as of possibly 2 days ago. I don't remember when I checked. It was recently. Yep.
So I don't think they can really do 2 updates a year properly. And I think this would be a nice, graceful way for them to say, you know what, everybody really just wants one. So let's do one.
Everyone would have to agree they can't do 2 a year. I mean, even this year, last year, where they technically, or not even technically, supposedly are doing 2, only one of them is actually a real feature update. I mean, they're fudging as it is. The other one's just a cumulative update.
Yep. So my weird and wild speculation, maybe not that wild, was when they came out with the 21H2 update last week and added in those UX features that we were not expecting. I was like, you know what? This kind of makes me think there's not a 21H1.
This is the trigger on 21H1. Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe.
Because I don't
know that for a fact.
I think until the day before they released those features to 20H2, I don't think there were any new features in 20H2.
I know. I don't think so either.
I could be wrong. I don't follow it that closely.
There might be something minor, right? There might be something minor.
But these are, not that any of these features are major in their own right either, but I mean, but they're actual features, right?
Yeah.
So
stay tuned for the mystery. I don't know when or if or how they are going to disclose what's going to be the new schedule going forward. They haven't talked about 10X in ages, so we don't know when they will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, some future Surface event, or maybe Inspire, something like that.
Maybe. Ignite.
And we know Mary Jo's excited about the ThemeAware tiles in the start menu in 20H2.
I cannot wait. Ooh. Every time I look at the screenshots of that, I'm like, I cannot wait, because I can't see what it is. So I'm really curious what it is.
I think the term game changer is thrown around a little too lightly
these
days. Game changer.
Whoa, game changer. All
right. All tab support for Microsoft Edge tabs.
I'm still trying to envision how that would impact my work life, but I don't think it will, since I don't use Alt-Tab.
There you go. Okay, never mind. I was going to say, the good news is you can turn it off. If you don't like it, you can turn it off.
Yeah.
What else?
Yep, exactly.
Build 20180.
That came out today.
That's what just came out. So what this is it's basically a fix for the previous build. It takes the features that were being A/B tested previously and just releases them to everyone. So if you're in the dev channel and you got that build, I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago or whenever that was, that had the new features in it, and you didn't get them, and I think the 2 that were being A/B tested were that new subtler start menu effect and the Alt tab stuff for the Microsoft Edge tabs. You'll have them now. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
The shackles are off. So there are no new features to speak of.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Microsoft 365 news now.
Yeah. Let's do another really confusing one. Let's start with tasks in Teams.
Right.
There's an app called Tasks that just went GA this week for Teams. What is Tasks in Teams, you may wonder? It's the rebranding of Planner.
Rebranding. No, you got it.
The rebranding.
Planner in Teams with to-do mixed in and Outlook tasks mixed in. So there's this app that used to be just called Planner in Teams that's being rebranded as tasks, but it also has to do and Outlook tasks all brought together in this app.
How does this relate to Outlook tasks?
Why?
Or sticky notes? Or
why?
Yeah.
Microsoft.
It's because they have too many things that do the same thing or roughly the same thing. And people always say to me,
the company and not tell anybody. Is this him?
I know.
Is this what he's doing?
Yeah. No, it's like,
it's
wait
weird,
a minute.
Right?
Okay, should I use Planner or tasks, or should I use this or that? And you're like, yeah, you should use whatever you want, because a lot of these things overlap and it's all about you.
How do you feel about Microsoft lists compared to SharePoint
lists also.
lists?
Here's another one. Yeah.
OneNote or collections.
Lists is not the same as to do, even though some people think lists are what to do is. But no, lists is a whole other app that isn't even integrated into this tasks thing at all. That's separate.
See, if I had a sunnier personality, I would just be so happy every time something like this happens, because it gives me something else to do. But in this family circus dynamic, I'm the other side of the fence. Like, I just see it as extra work, and it seems unnecessary.
What they're doing in Teams is weird to me. They're taking apps that have other names and they're rebranding the version that runs in Teams with a different name, right?
Yep.
Like Yammer. Yammer, when you're in Teams, is called Communities. And when you're not in Teams, it's called Yammer. Planner, when you're in Teams, is called Tasks. And when you're out of Teams, it's called Planner.
I love this company.
Somebody said to me, wow, why is this so confusing? And I said, well, as Paul and I always say, this gives us job security, because nobody,
they're doing it for us.
People in Microsoft
I haven't been doing it correctly these years. They're doing it for us. It's a gift.
It's a gift. Yeah. It's a gift.
Branding is hard.
So the thing I do, problem. I like that they're combining these things, because I feel like they have too many options for people, and it's too confusing to people when to use what, right?
I don't mind. So think about something like Microsoft To Do or Tasks or whatever we're calling it, because this is a thing that exists in Outlook on the web and Outlook.com and Outlook the application. It's in Teams now. It's whatever. So it's all over the place. I don't mind them surfacing the same backend in different ways in different places, because some people might gravitate to an Outlook solution. There are obviously people that graduate to a Teams type solution. Some people like the standalone app. Some people literally use sticky notes for some reason. Whatever, it's fine. As long as they're all hitting the same backend, I don't really care. And they, by the way, they are, right? So that's absolutely cool. I don't understand why they have different names. I mean, if I'm going to, like Microsoft To Do, we can either accept that that's a good name or not, whatever, but it's a name. Maybe it should be called To Do Everywhere. That would be my, I don't mind that. I can access my To Do in Teams now. That's cool. I don't have to open the separate application. That's fine.
Right.
But the branding thing adds another layer of complexity that I just don't quite understand. And in many cases, like the list thing is an example of something different, where these are actually different solutions that all do the same thing.
Yep.
They don't connect to the same backend. And maybe someday they will. I don't know. But right now they don't.
You know what the common backend is? And Tony Redmond on Petri had a great article on this. It's the Microsoft Graph, which is the key to life, basically. Microsoft Graph API.
Yes.
Everything is about the graph, right? It's like, if this is an object in the graph, which is why this stuff is all coming together. This is the reason that they have a common backend, and the common backend is this common API.
Okay.
I liked the way he put it. He put it better than I just did, but yeah.
Is it because he said it with an Irish accent, or because?
Yeah, that's why. That's definitely why.
But he's an expert. I mean, I'm sure he knows. I don't know. I just feel like this could be simpler.
Oh yeah, it could definitely be simpler. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
All right, what else we got here?
Family safety. We should talk about family safety.
Yes, this is important. This is important.
It's important, but I have to say, this is not something I don't think Microsoft should be doing. If you're sending kids out into the world with a phone, it seems like you'd want the thing that's built into the platform to do this for you. Microsoft seems like a weird place to go for this solution. But
they're offering this on iOS too, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's Android and iOS. Which is good. This stuff has its roots probably as far back as Windows XP. I don't remember that it's had different names over the time, but it's basically parental controls, right? So this is something that used to be built, well, still technically is built into Windows, but they've kind of turned it into an online service that can be applied to phones. It's built into Xbox, and it's obviously about all those things, screen time and whether or not the kid can, use the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning, or what types of sites they can visit, et cetera, et cetera. And they've modernized it. It's got nice features in it. So you're all at like a theme park sometime in the future when that's safe. And John is over in one ride and Jamie's over here at a different ride. And Mom and Dad are here doing their own thing. And they all know where they are, and you all get to see each other on a map and all that kind of stuff. And it's good. It's all very well intentioned. But, again, my kids are too old. I'm not going to be controlling what they do on phones. I haven't been doing that for years. I can't really test this effectively. But it just feels to me like this is the type of thing that should come from the platform maker, not necessarily from a third party that is not just doing this as a business,
Right. So the app is free, right? So it's free, but then to use features like location alerts, and they have driving safety reports, you're going to have to subscribe to Microsoft 365 family to get that.
Yep.
That's why they're in it, right? They're in it as, here's one more reason we want you to subscribe to the consumer version of Microsoft 365.
Right. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know. They've some improvements since the preview started, probably back in, I think it was in June, maybe.
Yeah.
Including I think the driving thing you were talking about. But whatever. It's, like well-intentioned. I'm sure it's good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see if people like it and how the uptake is on it.
Also in the I don't know category is the pending NBA season. We'll see. I've been watching baseball, by the way.
What do you think?
I like it. I'm okay with it. I honestly, look, I'm a Red Sox fan. I live for the announcers. Just hearing these guys' voices is soothing.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like summer. It really.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the Joe Kelly thing, a former Red Sox pitcher, getting into an awesome argument with a Houston Astro last night. It was beautiful after he struck him out. You should look that one up. It's hilarious. But anyway, I was told that Fox Sports on weekend, they get the weekend games, some of the weekend games, was going to be doing like virtual people up in the stadium. And I tuned into a couple of these
using
games.
Microsoft Teams audience.
That's the NBA.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Fox is doing, but they were not doing this. So I didn't get to see that. But starting, I think it's this week, right? End of this, actually might be tomorrow. The NBA season is going to restart. Yeah, so these guys are using Microsoft Teams, and it's that feature in Teams where, what's the feature called? The Together mode or whatever.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, where the people, so what it makes it seem, it's kind of goofy looking, because obviously in a typical basketball stadium, you'd have like 15 to 20,000 people. This is going to simulate 300 people, and the way they're doing it is they're literally putting 17-foot screens up in the chairs, and they're putting them next to each other on 3 of the sides, and so it's basically 4 or 5 rows of fans, and they're like you can see them in kind of a panorama, and they're they're kind of flat in there, but they're reacting and
making little hand gestures.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not real people? I thought they were going to be actual fans.
They are real fans.
They simulated real. I think they're real fans.
I think they're
projected.
Real. Yeah, they're on Teams, right? They're sitting there.
So I want to see this. I'm really curious. Look, we've all done that thing. We've experimented with that thing in Skype or Teams where you kind of blur the background or you have a custom background. And it's not that good, right?
Right.
Especially if you have like anything other than really flat hair.
Move. Or if you move back and forth. I can't wait to see what
this looks like. Yeah, exactly. You get something gets in front of you or whatever it is. I can't wait to see this. I'm going to watch games just to see what the Teams thing looks like. The Teams thing looks like.
You should ask them to let you be in the stands since you're a Microsoft guy. You should.
Some a Microsoft guy. Well, I like the idea that they're having. I mean, this must be like super fans of these teams. I think that's cool.
Yeah. Yep.
I just want to see it. I'm just
drop a little note to Steve Ballmer. Look, Okay, if you have a Clippers game,
listen, I'm
I'd like to be in the stand. Guy.
Is there an advertising deal with Microsoft in the NBA, or is it just this is
kind of weird, but they announced earlier this year, and I don't remember when I guess it was in April. I was going to say, I don't remember if it was before the pandemic, but they announced that they were going to collaborate, partner to bring next generation experiences to basketball. And at the time, it was like, okay, like what could that be?
Mean? Yeah.
And that could be anything, right? I mean, they've obviously partnered with the NFL with the Surface devices, and that's whatever it is, but whatever, they're everywhere now, and that's been several years. And then this is the first thing they actually announced, and I have to say, it's really cool. Like, it looks cool. I mean, we'll see if it works, but I mean, it doesn't give you the full stadium view. The fact that they're using actual screens in the stadium instead of projecting it digitally is weird to me, but that makes it almost, God help me, a little more real or realer. I just need to see it. I can't wait to see this.
Yeah.
This stuff is going to be, I mean,
it was a little weird
where they experimented with like a blue light on the puck. Remember that? They used it for a little while.
Yeah.
And now that's just an element of history. It's gone. I love that. I thought that was great. But, we're gonna look back, like, this is gonna be a year or two where sports are really weird. You can be like, how come this place can seat 80,000 people? Why are there 0 people in the stands?
I think people will remember why.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about, like, my kids' kids or something.
There'll be pictures in the newspaper back in the 20s.
Yeah. Remember when that happened?
People forget.
I'll be like, you guys made fun of me because of black and white TV. Look what you had to do.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick Xbox segment before we get to the back of the book. Paul Thurrott.
Mary Jo, we were ringing you on Thursday, but you never answered.
Yeah, I was a little busy.
Paul was good. Paul deserves some kudos. We were watching these games, including, by the way, the re-release of Tetris, which...
Right, which was a really confusing moment for just about everybody.
Yeah.
Like, this is clearly Tetris. Why are they showing
Did
Tetris?
they call it Tetris?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's multiplayer Tetris.
Yeah.
Well,
one of the big games coming to Xbox Series X. But Paul was great because there was a moment when that little Tinkerbell fairy appeared, and Paul said the only thing that could make this better is if she gets eaten by a frog, and then like seconds later,
like that second, like I was like, okay,
very nice.
Because they were showing the last game, and I'm like, this is so lame. What is this?
Pretty lame. But it's a famous franchise. It's and it got a little weirder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a little good.
So the big thing that came out of this to me was, and this is one I think we both commented on this, and it became the talk of this event. How come Halo doesn't look better? Like, we're looking at it like, this looks like Halo from like Halo 2.
Yeah.
Like, this is Halo. Like, I mean, by the way, that sounds obvious, I know, but Halo is literally 20 years old now. This is next generation. They're showing it off. It's the first thing they show. And it's like, why doesn't this look better? And Microsoft, or I guess 343 Studios, whatever, has gotten really defensive about this. And they're pulling a Windows 10 with Halo 2. I don't know if you caught this, but there's not going to be a Halo Infinite 2 or 3. They're going to just go with Halo Infinite for the next
Infinite means
10
infinite.
years.
Yeah, forever.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, both of us, as we're watching it, we noticed there's a grappling hook. I mean, hooray! There's like one new tool, and they used it a little bit like the gravity gun in in Half-Life 2. Okay, and then there was that new enemy guy that looked terrible. Apparently, he was from the Halo War games. But the graphical quality, or the lack of graphical quality, has been the big story since the event. And there's been a lot of questions like, why doesn't it look better? And basically what they're saying is, we want this to look like classic Halo. And it's like, well, if you were shooting for 720p, congratulations, you nailed it.
Congratulations. Yeah.
So I thought that was a little weird, but.
And I think the other big story was that everything was available on Game Pass. It was an absolute acknowledgement that Microsoft's future is cloud gaming, that xCloud will be, I think, it's a big thing, bigger even maybe than Series X.
Right, that's right. They're rolling Project xCloud into the most expensive tier of Xbox Game Pass, which is the one that's $15 a month. But anyone on Xbox Game Pass, whichever version, PC, console, or Ultimate, will get these games if it's available on that platform, and most of them are available on all of them. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Unless you're a PlayStation guy, in which case you think that's lame because you want exclusives. But I thought it was good. But some good stuff. I'm definitely going to play some of those games. There was some interesting stuff.
Meanwhile,
and
Games of Gold comes back. It's August soon, Saturday.
Yep, August. When is that? Yeah.
Saturday, yeah.
Saturday, yep. So they announced the games are coming to Games of Gold this coming month. Honestly, none of these are too compelling. The weirdest thing to me is that there are no Xbox 360 games. The two titles that are normally Xbox 360 titles, backward compatible titles, are original generation OG Xbox games. Red Faction 2 was huge at the time, but at that time the world was in sepia tones and we had ringy phones with the dial-on. It's a long time ago.
All the kids are playing Red Faction 2.
Here's the news from Europe. So I just, it's a little weird. Microsoft recently canceled the 12-month Xbox Live Gold subscription, so you can only pay for 3, and I think 6 months as well. Leading to speculation that maybe the future is all Xbox Game Pass. And someone said to me, does it seem like the quality of these games and Games of Gold is going down a little bit? And I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like there have been multiple months this year. I'm like, I don't need any of these. That's not what you really look. Anyway, they're free, whatever. And if you have more diverse taste than I do, I want them.
What is the future of Games of Gold, Game Pass, xCloud? Is it all going to be one thing?
I think it's all. Theory is it's all going to be Game Pass.
Yeah.
That's. I think they're going to get rid of Gold and xCloud gets rolled into Game Pass, and that's it. That's going to be their subscription.
Will they have tiers though? They'll have a higher tier for xCloud, maybe.
You could have just console or just PC for $9.99 a month, and then it goes cheaper as you pay for longer periods of time, or Ultimate, which is all of it, which is $14.99 a month.
Yeah, which most people will get.
I mean, it's depending on depending on how you game. I mean, it's very close to no-brainer territory for sure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if a game is $70, or even if it's $60, $60 is 4 months.
All you need is 2 games to justify it, and I mean, most people could absolutely find 2 games.
Yeah.
More than 2 games, easily. So the other semi-big news is we know that the Xbox Series X, which is the next generation Microsoft console, is black, and so we've seen all the peripherals we've seen have been black. And someone on Reddit posted a photo of a white version of the next generation controller. And if you're familiar with Microsoft's controller, you may recognize that this new coming controller as an improvement over the standard controller, and it's got a few design elements from the Elite controller, like that D-pad design, and an extra button and some other stuff. But subtle improvements to the current controller. So there's a white version. That's not necessarily a huge deal because white would be a color they would make. There are obviously different color controllers. They have the customization service you can use to make your own controller and so forth. But there are rumors that there's going to be something called an Xbox Series S, and that would replace the Xbox One S as kind of a mid-level machine, something that would be less expensive, and that machine is expected to be white. And is this that controller? Is that why this exists? Because I guess the soonest they could announce it would be August, but it's possible before this holiday season, Microsoft will actually announce it, like Sony, they're actually going to go to market with 2 different versions of the console. We might see a white, less expensive version. This photo was taken in the home of a Microsoft employee by a friend of his child who saw it sitting up. Thought it was kind of interesting.
Wow.
Because if you're familiar with Xbox controllers, you can look at it and say, hey, that's not what an Xbox controller looks like. What's going on here?
What's different, Paul? Because it doesn't look so different to me. Besides the color?
The middle under the white. There's a third.
Oh, this button. The eject button, whatever that is.
Yeah, I think it's probably a share button, but the other 2 are the same. And then that D-pad is a different design. It's a plastic version of the D-pad that you get on the Elite controller, which is removable.
Right.
It's actually just kind of subtle. I mean, the D-pad on the current controller is actually, I can show you, this is a custom controller, but it has. Oh yeah. See how it's
it's a plus instead of a circle. Yeah.
Yeah. So the circle, you get that on the.
That's a PlayStation-y thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Probably.
I've seen that circle somewhere.
Well, the Elite controller has it. But
that's right. I have an Elite controller. That's right.
Pop it off. There's different styles.
Yeah.
It's silver, but it's that basic design.
Yeah. That's kind of a better design.
Yeah. I think they've got the right layout. I like that they're kind of going forward. I mean, honestly, this is very close to the Xbox One controller. They did a nice upgrade from Xbox. The original Xbox 360 was okay. They refined that controller over time. They evolved that into the Xbox One. This is kind of a nice continuation. So it looks like it's good design.
I love the story. Man, Reddit's amazing. The stuff you find on Reddit, it's hysterical. So I was at this party, man, and there was this weird controller, dude.
Yeah, and his father works for Microsoft. I was like, why is that?
What could this be, man? That's why I live on Reddit. I just love it.
Absolutely lives on Reddit.
Really?
Yeah. Lives on Reddit. He gets everything from Reddit.
It's actually,
I think
my preferred
relationship advice.
Yeah, my preferred social network now. And it's all what subreddits you follow. There's all sorts of cookie ones, but
well, there's a thing. So we were, I don't know if he wouldn't have been living it. So he was visiting one summer or something a couple of years ago, and we had a blockage in our sewer below the house, and the guy pulled out this thing, like a spool of something that he said, this has to have been in here since the house was built. And we're like, what is this thing? And so Mark took a picture of it, my son.
Put it on Reddit.
And he found it within 15 minutes.
Yep. It was amazing.
It was pipe solder used to solder the pipes.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
Oh.
And someone just dropped it in like an idiot and was like, someone else's problem. 30 years later, whatever.
Wow.
35 years, 40, whatever, 40 years, I guess.
I like your tip of the week this week. Time for the back of the book. We kick off our feature elements with Mr. Paul Thurrott's tip of the week.
Yeah, I don't have any solutions to problems here exactly, but with big tech, Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook up in U.S. or virtually visiting U.S. Congress for these antitrust sessions, I'm starting. I do this from time to time. You sort of rethink things. Like is it so important that we get something next day from Amazon? Do I need a new phone every 6 months? Do I trust Google enough to use Chrome? I feel like there's a whole
Paul, that's all this network is about, is these deep.
Yeah, someone should start a podcast network that just talks about this.
That's all we talk about. Putting me out of business, dude.
No. Like I said, I don't have any. I'm not here with an answer, but I mean, I sort of do feel like we should collectively think about this more than we do. Like Mary Jo mentioned earlier, like I don't really think about the tracking, the privacy stuff. And it's like, I don't think anyone does. But I mean, maybe we should. I mean.
We're going to start a movement, Paul. You can call it conscious computing.
Conscious computing.
Conscious computing.
I'm going to start a site called the Purposeful Luddite.
Yes. Oh, I like it. You should totally. That's awesome.
I was talking to Brad the other morning, and I said, I'm rethinking retirement. Because I've always known for many years that my retirement would look nothing like my dad's. My dad has a pension from the government he set for life.
He's got a nice watch.
That does not exist in my
nothing.
And then I'll be working for as long as I can, and of course, the whole notion of retirement is ridiculous anyway. If you stop working, you're probably going to die anyway. I mean, you have to have purpose and so forth. But
so I guess I'm going to put off that retirement announcement I was going to make next hour.
You're not going to retire. You're going to make masks for the rest of your life.
I love my mask making. I must say that might be my new thing. Yeah.
I think my retirement is going to be me not being on social media.
Yeah.
Like
I'm ahead of you there. Way ahead of you, Paul. Yep.
You are. That's for sure.
Facebook's gone. Instagram's gone. I turned my Twitter account after the breach. I said, geez, Louise, I made it, private. Not that I use it. The only reason I keep it is so I can look at it once in a while. Yeah, I think that, like I said, Reddit's my only social media, and I'm just a lurker. I don't post anything there. Well, who needs that stuff?
Like a body blow every time someone comments on like a personal photo, or like every single thing I put on Twitter apparently is there for someone to tear it down and prove it wrong. And it's like, can we just let this here? Can we just? You don't want to be a punching
bag anymore. Yeah.
It really just weighs on me. I don't know.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so I again, like I said, I don't have answers, but I have questions, and I don't think this is something I'm going to start looking into this a little bit more and see if there's something that can come out of this.
The only thing I want to retire from is being that public eye, that public figure.
Yes.
That people feel like they can just you're there for them to take you down a notch. Yeah. And most people are really nice. Our audience is great. They're very sweet.
Yeah,
Mary Jo engages with them in the community.
Customer service, right? You'd know this if you worked in a restaurant, a retail store, or whatever, bank like I did. I mean, the majority of the feedback you get is negative, right? And on online, I feel like that effect is magnified, if anything.
It wears you down.
And I don't think people don't always. I mean, sometimes they just mean to be assholes. I'm sorry, but sometimes I think they do it casually and don't understand. Like someone will complain. For example, like my help desk thing gets complaints sometimes about like this podcast, and the complaint will say something like, "Well, when you and Mary Jo were discussing whatever the topic is, you didn't mention this."
Oh, please.
To which I said, my knee-jerk response is, dude, we have recorded almost 700 episodes over 15 years. We get together every week. We have a casual, off-the-cuff, 2-hour conversation about technology. I apologize that we didn't think of this one aspect of the conversation, but it's just a slice in time.
But Paul, some of this you can recontextualize because that person isn't. It feels like a criticism.
Yes.
But maybe they're just saying, hey, there's one other thing you didn't mention I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like they want to be in the conversation. I think most of what we get is very positive. It's just that I overweigh the negative. I give that a lot more weight than the positive stuff. I go, fine. Yeah. But the criticism I take seriously. And after a while, that can wear you down. But I think most people like this show, like you, Paul. It took them a while.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to suggest otherwise. All I meant was it's interesting, like how people can reach. Like, there's so many ways to reach me now.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
No, it's true. That's the real problem. That's why I stopped doing email. I stopped responding on Twitter. I mean, I don't want to be that reachable.
You have to pick your spots. You do.
That's kind of a bad thing to say if you're
I go in, I do my site comments every morning. It's one of the first things I do every day. And I got to tell you, if you're suicidal, this is not the way to start your day.
I know.
I never, ever go in my comments.
It is the most painful. It's people just being awful to each other.
I know.
To me, to the technology. Like, I hope this thing fails. I hate Microsoft and it's just the weight of it. You're like, oh my God, what is wrong with these people? Like, it's crazy.
I do fear that people listening to this are going to go, oh, wah, first world problems. You're in the public eye, you're making good money, and now you don't want to, but let's tell them the truth. The money's not that good.
By the way, I don't know if you've been paying
attention. You're not Jimmy
to
Fallon here.
Yeah. COVID thing?
No, there's something to be said for being anonymous.
Yeah, we're not in the first world anymore. Our problems are more like the third world. Yeah. But that is, and I think people who do what we do feel this, and I think a lot of people who don't go, well, big deal. This is what you signed up for. But there's a reason why there's so much drug addiction among movie stars, so much divorce, so much suicide.
Well, I mean, not that anyone should ever joke about suicide, but a semi joke about, like, there is a correlation between writers and suicide and depression, and these are people who are solitary, and Mary Jo and I mean, as writers, like, thrust in front of a camera in a way.
You chose an introverted profession. Little did you know.
Yeah, and now we're like on a stage.
It's so true.
What's here?
Well, and somebody's been in the public eye for more than 40 years of my life. It's more wearing now than it used to be.
Yeah, and you're much more in the public eye than either of us.
Oh my God!
Are
you are.
But it didn't, for a long time. It was like great, and it didn't bother me. And you'd get occasional critics, and you'd brush them off. Yeah. But Twitter and email,
it amplifies
comments. It's so easy for people now to do drive-bys, and that's the real thing. That a lot of times it's just offhand, like, screw you, you're a stupid idiot, and it's just too easy to have an opinion now.
Yeah.
And it is hard. Yeah, I completely acknowledge that, Paul. Yeah,
problems, but Anyway, obviously there are great people, and I get a lot of great feedback too. I really do appreciate that. But again, unfortunately, I mean, this is like the pro-con discussion we had about big tech earlier. I mean, there are huge advantages to all of this stuff, and then there's like the dark side where you're like, boy,
yep,
it's too bad.
Yep.
Oh well. Anyway.
Yep. I agree. So,
like I said, not going to solve any problems. Just asking.
Rethinking our relationship. I like it. How about an app pick of the week?
Yeah, so Microsoft announced this week Edge 86 just hit the dev channel. Actually, today they announced Edge 85 hit the beta channel, right? And so we're on Edge 84 if you're in the stable channel, which I have been. And I've actually been on stable for a long time on almost all of my computers. But I was reading this description of the new features that are coming in dev, and I thought to myself, this actually, like, Edge is still actively being updated regularly, there's a lot of stuff coming. And the list of stuff that is coming in 86 is pretty good, especially if you are one of those people who had issues with like the PDF support in the initial shipping version and some of the read aloud stuff. There's a lot of stuff coming. So I guess what I'm saying is if you're testing a browser is not as dramatic as testing a version of Windows, right? Joining the Windows Insider program is probably too much for a lot of people. But I think testing a browser is not that bad. And by the way, you can run them side by side. You don't even, if things don't go right, you can switch back to stable. So I think I'm going to make an effort, and I guess I'm recommending that people at least think about making this effort as well to look at the beta and dev versions of Edge and maybe think about contributing in that way by providing feedback and seeing what's coming down the pike, et cetera. It's not, well, I'm not doing it right now, so it's probably not as horrible or as big of a problem as, say, testing a future version of Windows could be.
Enterprise pick of the week, Mary Jo Foley.
Yep. Speaking of Credge, Microsoft announced this week that Credge Enterprise features are now integrated into the Microsoft 365 roadmap, which is kind of interesting. So if you go to the roadmap page, just look it up in your favorite search engine, Microsoft 365 roadmap, and you plug into the search box Edge. You can't put Credge in there, unfortunately. You have to put Edge. You'll see a list of the enterprise features that Microsoft is going to be rolling out and the status, whether they're launched or coming soon or whatever, and dates, and whether the rollouts are worldwide or US only. So if you go there now, it shows 2 in development features, 7 rolling out, and 13 launched for Edge. So this is very handy for people who are working in companies and they want to know how Credge will impact them. And then in terms of roadmaps, there's another roadmap item. GitHub this week added a roadmap for publicly acknowledged features that are coming to GitHub. And where did they put that roadmap? Of course, they put it on GitHub. So if you look up GitHub roadmap, in GitHub, you're going to see their public roadmap. It lists things by quarters, and it's not every feature coming to GitHub, but it's fairly complete, I would say. It lists things like Git action events appearing in audit logs, secret scanning for private repositories in the cloud. So if you're somebody who's very dependent on GitHub for your development needs and you want to know when they're adding specific publicly acknowledged features, you probably want to check out their new roadmap in GitHub. And one more related thing. There's now a landing page that Microsoft has created for Windows developers who are using things like Node.js, React, Java, Python, Xamarin, and Android Studio.
What?
I know. So this is mostly aimed at Mac users, I believe, who are coming over to Windows, and they're trying to figure out what they do on a Mac as a development machine maps to things like the Windows subsystem for Linux and Windows Terminal and all. Huh. So this landing page is meant to make that easier and give you a place to complain, basically, about things that aren't working the way you want them to or ask for help.
See? It's the new Microsoft.
I know.
Yep.
Yeah. I know, right?
It's the new Microsoft. Enterprise pick numero dos.
Yes, so Windows Virtual Desktop Service, back in April, Microsoft listed some features that were coming as part of the spring refresh. As of this week, 2 of those promised features are now generally available. One of them is integration with the Azure portal and WVD so that you can manage and deploy your apps and your virtual desktops right inside your Azure portal. And the other one is for people who use Teams. It's a feature called AV Redirect for Microsoft Teams, and this should make your AV performance in Teams work better when you're using it. When you're using Teams virtually in Windows Virtual Desktop. So both of those features are now generally available and rolling out as part of WVD.
WVD, not a great name.
I know. Yeah, not the best.
Not the best, but an acronym is an acronym. What can you say?
It is.
Now, in lieu of beer this week, I think Stephanie Thurrott has come up with a cocktail for us.
I should have her come and do this. Yeah, Mary Jo asked me if I would do a cocktail pick this week. So I picked the favorite cocktail that my wife makes, which is a Sakatini.
The name alone.
I know.
Gets it
a lot of people probably don't drink sake, and there are different kinds of sake.
I love sake.
But this is very light. It's a great cocktail for the summer. It's basically 1 part triple sec, 1 part cucumber lime vodka, which is a little hard to find, although now there are at least 2 different companies that make it. Used to be only 1 that we could find here. And then 5 parts. Oh boy.
5 parts of your sake. You don't call it sake, do you?
I promise I'm not drinking. 5 parts sake. Basically, you just mix it, shake over ice, cucumber lime. As a garnish, my wife notes that she prefers to use triple sec, or if you can't find that or don't have it, Cointreau, because the drink stays clear. The first time she ever made it, she made it with Grand Marnier.
That's a little orangey.
And that made it kind of, which is fine. Honestly, it tastes
the flavor's fantastic. The same, but if you can use a clear liqueur, it'll be kind of pretty.
And what you're looking for is the clear, uncloudy sake, and it's the type you serve cold, not warm.
You want a dry, cold sake, not the warm.
Yep.
Or the
this is a dangerous drink. It's so light, you'll think you're drinking nothing.
Yeah.
And then when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning on the couch with the TV still going, and you're not sure why.
It's not that alcoholic, but
you've been sakatini'd. I know, but you'll drink a ton of them there.
That's the problem. Awesome. They're very refreshing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what a great name. Sakatumi? Sakatini? I like it. That's great. I might have to try to make that. I'm going to have to find
that sounds refreshing.
Vodka. You guys are turning me into a drinker.
I'm so sorry. It's
Thanks so much.
Pandemic.
Windows users, we need something.
I want to. I think it is because of the quarantine that I want to have a 5 p.m. cocktail.
I know.
Like my parents used to do. They have a 5 p.m. cocktail.
I literally instated something called Almost Weekend, which is Thursday.
Almost
Thursday's
weekend.
like, we're gonna have a couple of cocktails. I know it's not the weekend.
There's nothing to stop you.
Weekend.
It's just like there's nothing to stop you from walking around in your shorts. It's just
or a flag or an American
flag. There's nothing to stop you.
We got the neighborhood association got a call from the neighbors about a man parading around in his yard in a flag. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, Paul Thurrott. You'll find him at thurrott.com. That's where, his comedy stylings. Every day of the week there he's posting. He also does the First Ring Daily with Mr. Sams every day there. That's another podcast you can listen to and would enjoy, I think. And of his books, you've got to get the Field Guide to Windows 10. That's available, always being updated at leanpub.com. Mary Jo Foley, she's at allaboutmicrosoft.com, which I will wrest from her at some point.
Good luck.
You'll let that domain go eventually.
I'll get it someday. And that's, of course, her ZDNet blog, which is completely coincidentally all about Microsoft.
Yep.
Ironic, isn't it? And each week we gather here, we get a quorum, and we do the show 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC of a Wednesday morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. You can get that show. You can actually watch us make it live, which is fun if you happen to be around at that time. Twit.tv/live is the place where you can find. There's multiple streams. There's video and audio. If you're doing that, the chat room is a great place to hang out with the other people watching live. irc.twit.tv. For those people who can't be here while we're doing it live, and that's fine. Most of you don't. It's a podcast after all. On-demand versions of the show available on the website, twit.tv/WW, on YouTube. Of course, you could subscribe. There's a great, podcast player with your name on it. Just pick the one you like. Overcast, Shoutcast, Pocket Cast. I can go on with all the casts. All the casts. Subscribe to Windows Weekly. That way you just get it automatically every day, every Wednesday when it's available. That's nice. If you are an asynchronous viewer or listener, we have a forum as well, which I really should plug more often. Mary Jo was in there the other day, and it's nice. People give you feedback. They're very friendly there. You
should go in there and like slap people down.
No, you're good. No. People love Mary Jo.
I was trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
Trying.
Yeah. That's www.twit.community. And it's my kind of social network. It's kind of a slow cooker, social network. So I enjoy it. Lots of different topics there. Twit.community. Thanks, Paul and Mary Jo. Have a wonderful week. Stay healthy. We'll see you next week on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.
Be sure to check out the other shows on the network, like my other show, Hands On Wellness. I love to share different tips and tricks that's going to help you get a better grasp on your personal wellness. Just go to twit.tv/how and subscribe now.